The similarities and differences in the genetics of twins have fascinated people over the ages. The twin birth rate, 33.5 out of 1,000 births. So that means for every 1,000 births, there are 33.5 twins born. It's something that we really don't see every day. Many twins, 1 in 5, claim that they share a special connection to the other. That's why doctors, scientists, and psychologists have been going at them, doing research and studies for a very long time. Sometimes this particular fascination with twins would lead to gruesome experiments being done to them. In the early to mid-1940s, Nazi doctor Josef Mengele worked in Auschwitz, conducting pseudo-scientific experiments as well as medical experiments, which are pretty much the same thing. However, his favorite experiments were conducted on twins. Approximately 3,000 twins were experimented on by Dr. Josef. Only 200 survived. Besides having blood drawn, the twins underwent various medical experiments and experimental surgeries performed without anesthesia. Some of these included blood transfusions between the twins, isolation endurance, and other experiments as well. Dr. Josef would inject the twins without regard for sanitary conditions. He would perform sex change operations as well as remove limbs and organs to see how it possibly affected the other twin. One of these experiments was to recreate blue eyes unnaturally. This would require drops or injections in the eyes, which would cause severe pain, infections, temporary and sometimes permanent blindness. I'm at the bridge, and we're going to start off Halloween a little bit early this year. We're going to delve into some real, true life stories, potentially scary, downright horrifying, weird events involving twins. This first entry on our list was a part of Dr. Josef Mengele's infamous experimentations on twins at Auschwitz. Miriam and Eva lived what you could call a good life, for the first few years anyways. Miriam and Eva were taken away from their mother without warning or explanation. As they were taken away from their mother, their screams fell on deaf ears. Eva recalled her own quick introduction at Auschwitz as she was greeted by the children's deceased, decomposing bodies on the ground. Miriam and Eva were put through many extreme, brutal surgeries and experiments by Mengele. During her ordeal, she and Miriam were put through many gruesome experiments and surgeries by Mengele. One such instance involved Eva being injected with 5 shots. Her arms and legs were swollen to an incredible size, and she had a high fever. Dr. Mengele and Dr. Koenig and 3 other doctors came in the next morning to examine her charts. Dr. Mengele said laughingly, "Too bad she is so young. She has only 2 weeks to live." Unfortunately, Miriam and Eva were the only members of their family to survive. Unfortunately, all in life was not well for Eva and Miriam after their ordeal in Auschwitz. Eva suffered from multiple miscarriages and tuberculosis, and Miriam died in 1993 due to her kidneys not properly developing, possibly as a result of the experimentations of Dr. Josef. In 1985, 40 years after the liberation of Auschwitz, Eva Mozart's core, Miriam, and other survivors returned to Auschwitz, and subsequently held a mock trial for Dr. Josef Mengele in Israel, which received international coverage. But despite almost being murdered, Eva forgave the Nazis, and particularly Josef Mengele. June and Jennifer Gibbons were born in 1963 from Caribbean immigrants Gloria and Aubrey Gibbons. As immigrants in the community of Haverford, West Wales, and also being the only black children in the neighborhood, they were bullied and alienated by society. Their Bajan Creole made it particularly difficult for the people to understand them, further isolating them. Eventually, June and Jennifer started creating their own bird-like language, where they could only communicate with each other. Their creation of this language could be classified as a type of idioglossia, as an example of cryptophagia, which is a language created between twins. Later, their life took a path of crime, and they were charged with 16 counts of burglary, theft, and arson. When in court, the judge decided that, seeing as how they were suffering from a mental condition, they would be placed into a mental hospital. At the hospital, June and Jennifer's condition baffled the doctors. They even displayed uncharacteristic behaviors. Like, for instance, they would take turns eating. One day, the one would gorge itself on food, and the other would starve itself. During their stay at the mental facility, they made a pact between each other that in order for them to live a normal life, one of them would have to die. Jennifer would be the one to sacrifice her life. In March of 1993, the twins were transferred from Broadmoor to a less secure Caswell clinic back in Wales. When they arrived, Jennifer was non-responsive. She died shortly of a sudden inflammation of the heart. June lives a quiet life independently near her parents and is finally accepted by society or the community, however, without her sister. In May 2008, a film crew was shadowing police and were expecting to film a routine call on the M6 motorway in London. The crew of the reality show Motorway Cops was shocked when on arrival they saw two twins, two women, SABINA and URSULA ERIKSSON, running into traffic. Closed-circuit television cameras captured the twins slowly creeping towards the highway, going over the guardrail and running into the road without any sense of fear or caution. The drivers obviously attempted to avoid hitting them, but to no avail. Ursula's legs were crushed, and SABINA had sustained an injury in her head, which caused her to go unconscious for a short period of time. Oddly enough, SABINA and URSULA were both refusing help from police and paramedics. SABINA was reported to be shouting, "They're going to steal your organs." And URSULA told the policeman restraining her, "I recognize you. You're not real." When SABINA awoke, she refused the help of the medics and attacked a police officer and was arrested. Doctors were baffled as to why the twins would so incessantly attempt to run into traffic. They tried to explain it by that the twins showed a psychosis known as a Folie, which is a psychological disorder where two individuals share a delusion. Usually they're related, but it's an extremely rare condition. SABINA then spent the night in the custody of the police, where she was noted to be acting strange but generally relaxed. The following day, she was processed by the court, absent a full psychological evaluation, and was left to walk the streets. She pled guilty to trespassing on a motorway and hitting an officer, and was sentenced to having to serve 1 day in jail, but they credited her with her evening, so they let her go. Twin brothers Stephen and Bruce Spahalski were both murderers without the other actually being aware of the other's activities. They were born in December 1954, and I guess they were well behaved. Can't actually know that but I'm assuming they were, because there was no problems to note at that time. As they grew older and went into their teenage years, things took a turn for the worst. Stephen, at age 16, stabbed a 48-year-old store owner to death. He was jailed and served 8 years for that crime. After his release, he was convicted on robbery charges as well as kidnapping charges and was placed in jail until 1999, only to be arrested again on a parole violation. Bruce led a life that was quite similar to Stephen's, except obviously he was not in jail. He led a life of crime as well as a life of drug addiction and murder. He was possibly a serial killer, but who knows. On New Year's Eve 1990, he killed his neighbor, Maureen Armstrong. A few months later, he strangled his girlfriend, who was a prostitute and a drug addict. Which makes you wonder how he got away with these crimes, but I guess if you hang around the wrong crowd, nobody really asks questions. All the way from the time he killed his girlfriend to 2005, he committed no murders. However, in 2005, hanging with a neighbor of his, they started smoking crack. Bruce then started having a hallucination that his neighbor was a demon, so he killed her. Afterwards, he went to the police, confessed his crime, and was sentenced to 100 years in jail. While in prison, his brother Stephen was shown a newspaper clip that his brother was a serial killer. Stephen's response was that he was shocked. He thought he was the only murderer in the family. Twins can happen in multiple ways. In one way, 2 eggs are released from the ovaries and are fertilized, which leads to fraternal twins. In the other instance, an egg splits into half and 2 identical twins are formed. Sometimes something goes wrong in the developmental process and one of the fetuses dies. The underdeveloped fetus, in perhaps an attempt to cling to life, attaches itself to the other living, developed fetus that's growing. And this phenomenon is known as a parasitic twin. In one instance, an infant was born with a parasitic head attached to its stomach. The doctors underwent surgery to remove the head as the infant could have died from a blood infection. As you can tell, this is a rather dangerous and horrifying condition that can cause death for a newborn, and is pretty scary, disturbing as well. So what do you think? Twins apparently, not all of them, but some of them have a connection to each other that causes them to have a bond that transcends what normal people can experience between one another. It's an interesting... Tell me what you think. Leave a comment. If you think this is disturbing, maybe you have an idea. Have a little conversation. If you like this video, like it. Share it with your buddies. Subscribe. There'll be more videos. Fun time. Follow me on Twitter and like my Facebook page. Till next time, I'm at the bridge. Care to plenty. Thanks for watching.